Hey gang, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio. Just recently we had Aaron Badgley on the channel here because he has a new book out on Ringo Starr called Ringo Starr Solo-Career, Got to Pay Your Dues. It's all about Ringo's solo career in the 70s and in depth, one that I highly recommend. And he also, prior to that, put out a book on Dark Horse Records. Do you have that in front of you? He's prepared, man. He comes prepared. Okay. Who else do you know of that's written a book on Dark Horse Records? I ask you. This is the man right here, Aaron Badgley.
Thank
When
you.
you want to talk to anyone about attitudes, talk to Aaron. If Ken
Jiva.
Burke is your guy, talk to Aaron. Okay, but I thought, after doing the show that we just did on the Ringo book, Vini Poncia is such a big figure in Ringo's career.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about him. And after Ringo co-wrote the three hits of his with George Harrison, his main guy throughout the 70s as a songwriter was Vini Poncia.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I brought Aaron back and we could talk about what we feel are the best songs that Ringo co-wrote with Vini Poncia? And something I've said many times on my podcast, and Aaron brought it up when he was on just recently, is that Ringo the Fourth album, which often is maligned as being one of the worst solo Beatle albums, was a big step in Ringo's career because there's 10 songs on the album and six of the 10 were co-writes
Yeah.
with Vini Poncia. And he had never done that much. He'd done a little bit here and there with George Harrison, a few solo just by himself, like Step Lightly. But and then in addition to that, the six songs, the B-side, Just a Dream, was from those sessions. So it's really seven songs that Ringo co-wrote with Vinny on that album. And I counted, if you include Lady Gay from Ringo's Rotogravure, which was Ringo, Vinnie Poncia, and Clifford T. Ward, there are 15 songs that Ringo co-wrote with Vinnie Poncia. That's a sizable amount of songs to write with one person.
Mhm.
So I thought we'd talk about our top 10 list here. And chances are, since there are 15 and we're naming 10, we're going to repeat between the two of us. But I'm curious to find out, your overall impression of these songs that Ringo did with Vinny, considering the fact that this was, aside from writing with George Harrison, the first really big step before Joe Walsh with Old Wave, before the Mark Hudson years, all the people post Mark Hudson. This was the first person he really heavily wrote with.
Mhm.
What was your impression of these songs then and now?
So, before I give you that impression, you mentioned there's 15 songs, and that's counting Lady Gay, and there's probably another 10 that have never seen the light of day. Because I know that for Rotogravure and Ringo the Fourth, there was a lot of songs recorded that didn't get released, and I don't think they were covers. So I'm pretty sure they were songs he wrote with Vinny.
Uh-huh.
My impression is you summed it up beautifully. It was an important next stage in Ringo's career. I mean, he felt secure to write, and the fact that he wrote over half of an album with a guy for Ringo the Fourth speaks volumes. I think, and this probably a controversial statement, I think they've aged remarkably well. I listened to these albums in 2026, and maybe it's my age. Maybe I've aged well. I haven't, but maybe I have. Uh, but I think the songs have aged well, and I think they're really good, and in some points, at sometimes very honest songs by Ringo. And I think that I'm glad we're doing this because we can shine a light on at least 10 of the songs because I love them. I'm a big fan. You know, I love Ringo the Fourth. I mean, I've made no
Uh-huh.
secret with that. I've always been a big fan. I like Bad Boy too, but he only wrote two songs with Vinny on that album, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. So I'm a big fan. What's your impression of them? I mean, you as a listener.
I happen to like, as I said when you were on before, I like every song he wrote with Vinny, with the exception of Out on the Streets. I do feel like that's a throwaway in a way. But when you consider Ringo the Fourth, and I'm so glad someone else is defending this album, because as we had said, it gets labeled as the disco album when there's only a couple songs on there which you could label as disco. Although Just a Dream, the B-side, is definitely a disco song in my opinion, but most of the song is not. Some of the tracks are danceable that I wouldn't call disco, like Can She Do It Like She Dances and um, Sneaking Sally Through the Alley, those songs. But I think that melodically, lyrically, they're very strong. I think Ringo is very good at these heartfelt tunes that are mid-tempo tunes with a really nice melody. I mean, Ringo the Fourth is one case in point where you've got two songs back to back. You've got Gypsies in Flight and It's No Secret. And those two songs are really solid, really
Yeah,
nice ballads and all.
yeah.
Um, for the most part, they're very enjoyable, very commercial. They're not necessarily songs that are going to blow you away like they're trend-setting songs or groundbreaking. They're just good, solid pop songs. And how much of that was Ringo's input? How much of that was Vinny's input? That I would love to know because I've never seen an interview with Vinny talking about this or Ringo. Ringo doesn't talk all that much about his songwriting, which I wish he would, because as I even said to him, I've had the chance to interview Ringo 3 times. They're all brief interviews, but I said, ever since Vertical Man, you've written or co-written almost every song on your albums. With the EPs, they were slowing down a bit, and Look Up only has one song that's a Ringo co-write. But he was so active as a songwriter, and I wish more people would give him credit as a songwriter. I don't think he'll ever be in the league of John, Paul, and George, but I do think that it's worth investigating and appreciating. And I think so many of the songs he's written and co-written are really solid all the way through. Most of the songs that he's written, especially the stuff he wrote with Mark Hudson and Gary Burr and Steve Dudas. But starting more with George Harrison and then Vinnie Poncia.
Well, and I wonder if, my mind always goes to if he had gotten more credit for his songwriting, maybe he would have grown as a writer. I think he took a lot of slams for his writing. And I'm going to agree with you. I think the stuff he wrote in the 90s and the 2000s is phenomenal. And I would put some of the songs up against Liverpool 8 is one of the finest songs any solo
Hmm.
Beatles ever done. I will put that and I will defend that to my last breath, Ken.
Right.
But I agree with everything you say, and I think that sometimes Ringo gets, and again, not to flog the book, but that's why I wanted to write the book, was kind of say, look, there's more to Ringo than Photograph and It Don't Come Easy. And I'm glad that when you interviewed him, I got to do 2 press conferences with him too, and I brought up his songwriting, and he kind of fluffed it off. It was like, well, that's kind of a side thing, and I'm like, no. It's not, but there you go. I think what I would say that each song with Poncia, you could maybe kind of assume that sounds more Ringo. You know what I mean? Like, because I agree. I don't know what the partnership was,
Yeah.
and I would love to talk to Vinny about it because I'm not going to ever talk to
Or would
Ringo.
I?
But if you get Vinny on your show, I'm going to crash that one. Okay, just saying.
Okay. I would love to talk to the man. By the
But
way, for everyone that's not familiar with Vinnie Poncia and his history prior to working with Ringo, he was in a band in the 60s called the Tradewinds,
yep,
and they were known for having a top 40 hit, more of a hit on the East Coast, maybe because of the title, New York's a Lonely Town, which you might be familiar with.
yep,
And he became a very successful producer in the 70s for people like Melissa Manchester, who, as you noticed, turned up on Ringo the Fourth. And she was on Ringo's Rotogravure too, right?
yep,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Leo Sayer, he produced. He ended up producing Kiss when they put out their disco song, I Was Made for Loving You, which I'm sure a lot of Kiss fans probably despise, but that was where they were at that time. But he had a lot of success as a producer, and here he is in the 70s writing and producing with Ringo. Um, yeah, someone with that kind of an experience. Didn't you say in your book that Richard Perry is the reason why Vini Poncia came along? Did they knew each other, or Vinny worked with Richard Perry?
Vinny worked with Richard Perry in the early 70s, and Richard thought it would be a good combination. And when Ringo and Vinny met, I think the first thing they wrote was "Oh My." And I'm glad Richard brought it. I mean, that's "Oh My" to me is classic Ringo, and
Right.
it's a song of its time, and yet it's timeless at the same time. I'll
Hmm.
explain that later. But yeah, so Richard Perry brings them together. I think Richard Perry recognized that Ringo would say it, like he's said many times in interviews, I'm really good at starting songs. I'm not good at the middle eighth and finishing them.
Right.
Hence working with George, right? And again, you got to kind of shudder and think, man, if George and Ringo had written it, because their songs they've written together are all classics. I mean, they really are. Photograph is an incredible work of art.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Vinnie Poncia had a heck. I mean, he co-wrote "You Make Me Feel Like Dancing," which was Leo Sayer's breakthrough hit. Again, disco-y, but it doesn't matter if you're a Leo Sayer fan. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
I, I'm not the biggest Leo Sayer fan, but I don't know all of his catalog. But so it should have worked, is what I'm saying. It should have worked.
Okay. By the way, that wasn't Leo Sayer's breakthrough hit.
I know. As soon as I said it,
Yeah.
Ken, the minute
Yeah.
it left my mouth, it was like, nope, that
Uh,
wasn't his
Long
hit.
Tall Glasses was his first big hit in the US. And he also recorded an entire album of Beatles songs, which I haven't heard.
What? Did he?
Yeah, recently. I know he lives in Australia.
He
There
didn't.
was
I
some
didn't know he
talk that
did that
he was
whole.
going to possibly tour in the US, which I would have been curious to see, but it didn't happen.
Well, he's just announced his final tour of the UK, so maybe he will do the US as kind of a farewell worldwide thing. Maybe.
Hmm,
I, I'm gonna look up that album. I didn't know he did a cover album.
he did.
That. Well, all right.
All right,
Hello,
so should I
chat.
just list all the songs here that he co-wrote that have been released, and then we'll talk about them?
Absolutely.
So we'll just do these chronologically. The Ringo album, Oh My, and Devil Woman. Goodnight Vienna, Ooh Wee, and All by Myself. Ringo's Rotogravure, Cryin', and Lady Gay with Clifford T. Ward. Then we get to Ringo the Fourth, Wings, Gave It All Up, Out on the Streets, It's No Secret, Gypsies in Flight, Simple Love Song, and then that B-side that I mentioned, Just a Dream. And then the two songs on Bad Boy, Who Needs a Heart and Old Time Lovin'. All
Yeah.
right, so I said we'd list our top 10. I'm not sure if I said are we rating them or just these are the 10 that
Well, I think you should rating them. I don't. I'm hesitant to rate because that what my top 10 today could be my very different a week from now, right? But I ranked them, but that whatever you did, I'll follow suit.
okay, I ranked mine, but I'm the
Okay.
same way. Mine can change.
Yeah.
Although what's number one rarely
No.
changes.
Oh,
All
oh. I'm, I'm
right, so
curious,
let's
curious what number one is for you. I'm curious. All right.
okay, let's hear your top 10 from 10 to 1.
Are you
Do
really?
do your do your best Casey Kasem voice.
I'll do Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo.
Whatever
Well,
works.
so number 10, okay, from 10 to 1. 10, Just a Dream. Then
Mhm.
number 9, Simple Love Song.
Yeah, when you say these, you can say why.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
whole purpose of, why you like these particular songs. I'm going
Ah,
to write down your list. So 10 is Just a Dream,
yeah. You
9
know,
is Simple Love Song.
I know that both of those songs fall into the category of disco, but they also fall for me in the category of earworms. And I, again, maintain that Just a Dream, had it been an A side with a nice promo video and he did a little touring, would have been a monster hit. It's catchy. I'm shocked it's buried on a B side. I'm shocked it's never been issued on a CD. It seems to be a lost gem in my view. And I don't know if he just loved it or wanted or Atlantic just didn't want to waste another song on the B sides. But
Hmm.
it was both the singles, which I always think says. I know that when George Harrison released his singles from 33 to 30, he insisted on the B side, Learning How to Love You. He really loved that song.
Uh-huh.
So it gave it more exposure. Maybe Ringo liked Just a Dream. I don't know.
Hmm.
Simple Love Song is disco, but we talked about this when we talked. I think we agree that this should have been maybe the first single off the album. Uh,
Possibly. You know,
quite commercial, quite. upbeat, right?
Yeah. Now, when I hear Simple Love Song in the very beginning with Ringo's drumming and the strings, I'm hearing Philadelphia Freedom. It's very similar to that,
It
just in the
is.
arrangement. So I wonder if that was an influence in any way a couple of years back for Elton John. But yeah, Simple Love Song I could have seen as the first single, although, I really do love Wings as a
Mm.
song. I just don't know as a single if it was really a strong choice.
Well, I'm with, well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We will get to Wings.
All right.
Number 8. This is a really underrated song. Who Needs a Heart?
Okay.
I really, hearing it live would be great. I think it's a great, you know, good song, solid. Ringo sings it well, and I think it's a very Ringo song. Now, this is where I know we're going to have some disagreement. Out on the Streets is my number 7 song. Uh, I never liked the song until I went to write my book. And when I was listening to Ringo the Fourth, I heard stuff in that song I didn't think I heard before. The ending is a bit embarrassing. I don't think we need the ending with a little talk. That's kind of silly. Musically and lyrically, I mean, he alludes to John Lennon with talking about the Dakota at one point. We're going to the Dakota. I like that. I like that it's very heavy for Ringo. It's a heavy, dense production, and I think he does it well. And lyrically, we could argue about this. I think it's got some semi-autobiographical stuff in there about what's going on. That's just my take on the song.
Okay. I just, for me, it seemed like a very sloppy, tune to put together. I didn't feel like a lot of effort was put behind it. I think he's pushing his voice a lot to
He
rock a little
is.
bit more. He's much louder in his vocals. But I just don't know. It didn't, it's catchy, but yet it's not catchy in a good way, if that makes any sense. But
Uh, I
I
do.
hey, listen, I like all the songs with Vini Poncia except that one. You gotta allow me one.
100%. Number
Okay.
6 is Crying.
Okay.
I think here's a good example of Ringo being able, he's written a few country songs, Band of Steel, Crying, and I think it works. I think and later on, I'm trying to think of the song he recorded later on. He kind of borrowed a bit from the melody for Crying. It's a great melody. I've read somewhere, and I didn't put it in my book because I couldn't find the exact quotation, but I know that Ringo said he really wrote that by himself, and Vinny helped him finish it. Can't talk today. First day with the new mouth. Um, I like it. I think it's kind of stands out on the Rotogravure album because it's very country and good song. Number 5, All by Myself.
Hmm.
Love that song. John playing guitar, but just as a song itself, again, it goes back to my theory about Goodnight Vienna being more of a breakup album. This is kind of, you know, lyrically, it's strong. It's got that strong Ringo melody, good arrangement. Richard Perry did a great job producing it. Number 4, you give me an organ being played by Dr. John, and I'm there. Old Time Relovin' from Bad Boy.
Uh-huh.
I love this song. I just been playing it on my radio show because I think it's a song that should be played often. That organ is fantastic. I don't know if Ringo wrote that or Dr. John came up with it, but wow, is that fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah.
Number
There's something to be said about Ringo having a style that's his own.
Yeah,
And seriously, a lot of the songs that he writes in terms of chord structure are very simple, but they're effective and they fit Ringo. Doesn't have
yeah,
to be complicated music for it to be great. You know,
no,
a lot of what he does, if you study music and you know music theory, you can figure out the chords very, very easily, but they work for Ringo, which is the most important thing. So, I mean, All by Myself is a perfect example of that. Um, yeah, I like the fact you put All Time Relevant that high in the ranking.
I was thinking about the ranking was is what songs do I go to when I'm listening to? If I don't have time to hear the whole album, what will I kind of spotlight? And these are the songs I go to often, including you mentioned it earlier, Simple Love Song, which again was a song that as a young person I wasn't keen on, but I've grown to really, really, really like. And for the same reasons you just said, I think, you know, I was talking to a musician the other day, and he said, you don't have to write a symphony every time you write a song. And like you just said,
Hmm.
as you said, simplicity is okay sometimes. I mean, some of the greatest songs we've ever heard, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's how many notes, right? I mean, it's a great song lyrically and musically. So Ringo, I think Ringo knows his limitations too. I think Ringo's a bright man, and he knows he's not going to write, thick as a brick, but he can write what he writes, and he writes it well. And they're both, you know, there are days when I want to hear thick as a brick, and there are days when I want to hear Ringo the Fourth, right?
Uh-huh.
Number two,
Thing.
a song.
The,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say in the Beatles catalog, you got simple songs like Love Me Do,
Yeah,
which work on its own level. And then you
yeah.
got more complex songs like I Am the Walrus or something like that. And those are great too.
And you get Harrison doing a song like Within You, Without You, but then he'll write a more simpler song that, later on that works. My Sweet Lord is not a complicated song, I don't
Hmm.
think. I'm not a musician, but I think it's a pretty straightforward, you know.
Yeah.
Oh My is at number two. Uh,
Okay.
I love that song. It was not a big turntable hit here in Toronto, which always upset me because I thought I wanted to hear it on the radio as a 10-year-old kid. Number one is
Wait, wait, wait,
Wings.
wait, 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 wait.
Oh,
Who's
sorry.
number three?
Simple Love Song.
Oh, I'm sorry. You talked about it, but I didn't hear you say it was number three. Okay. Simple
Yeah,
Love Song.
Simple Love
Sorry.
Song. No problem.
Okay.
Two is Oh My, and one is Wings, which is a song that over the years, and I think Ringo likes it because he re-recorded it, right?
Yeah.
And had that great, I thought it was a brilliant way to promote it, have people make their own videos for it and send them in, and then someone won. I thought that was a great, very clever idea. And the video is great. I do love
Uh-huh.
the, but
Which version do you like better?
I'm going to say the original,
Okay.
I
Me
think.
too.
I think because the original has a bit of a grit to it. Spinoza's guitar solo is absolutely stunning. It fits, it drops in there perfectly, and it really that song on the album sounds like a band. When you listen to the song Wings, it sounds like Ringo has one of the hottest bands on earth right now, and he's just rocking out, and he's got it's again his vocals are unique to that song because he kind of gets a bit of a growl going on.
Uh-huh.
The original I'm talking about, and it's a bit of a grittier sound for Ringo, and I think it works. Do I think it was the best choice as the first single in America? No. I could see when I spoke to the guy, Mike Hales from Polydor. Polydor said, "No, this is not a single, Ringo. Drowning in the Sea of Love is a single."
Hmm.
And I agree, that's a great single, although it didn't do well. But and he didn't write it, but I'm just saying it's a good single. I don't know if Wings was the best song to introduce Ringo the Fourth. What do you think?
Probably what the guy from Polydor said, either Drowning in the Sea of Love or Simple Love Song.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it depends on if you want to go. It wasn't until like the Ringo album and like Band on the Run when you had three singles from an album, and then it
That's
got
right.
to be even more and more. But if you're thinking in terms of what would be the first, second, third, fourth, I would definitely have probably have made it. I prefer a Simple Love Song over Drowning in the Sea of Love, although I love the
I
whole
do too.
production. I love the production on Drowning in the Sea of Love.
Yeah.
And I really like that arrangement of it. And I have nothing against Ringo going disco. I have nothing against disco. Um, Probably I would have went Drowning in the Sea of Love, Simple Love Song. Um, Maybe Sneaking Sally Through the Alley. I think that's very catchy right there. Um, there's one song in particular is my favorite. which I can't see really doing well, but I could see it as like a fourth single to give the album a little bit more shelf life if it was to ever have shelf life. Um, yeah, probably that's what I would pick. But I remember Ringo saying, as far as Wings is concerned, he did the new version because he felt the earlier one went on too long.
Yeah.
I think the earlier one is better because it has much more of a blues feel to it. It's meatier, and yes, grittier vocals, especially in the bridge there. You know,
Yeah.
when he's singing, the music keeps going around and around in my ears. You know, he's pushing his vocals there, and it's gritty. I love that. You know, so
And I think that's what Arif Mardin did more than Richard Perry, which I think he pushed Ringo. And I know Ringo felt he was out of his comfort zone, but it was good. And I agree. He pushed those vocals and it um and so to your point, Sneaky Sally was a single in Australia, which I
hmm,
always thought was interesting. They were smart. I thought that was a great single. Certainly Robert Palmer had a minor hit with it, but
right.
Ringo is excellent. So but yeah, I it's like Rotogravure. Joseph Rock and Roll is a great first single. Nothing wrong with that choice.
Yeah.
Although in Europe they went with "You Don't Know Me," which I thought was odd. But Dose of Rock and Roll. Well, we'll talk about. We're not going to talk about the about what ifs. But if he had just toured a bit, did some TV, that could have been a monster hit. Okay, that's my top 10. I'm
Well,
curious about yours.
you know, just to reiterate what we said in our previous show, and this is true. Um, if Ringo had toured during the 70s, that would have had a profound effect, I think, on his record sales. I'm not saying the albums would have went to number one or even top 10, but they would have charted much higher than they did.
I agree.
And they weren't really promoted right. Like we were talking about Ringo the Fourth, you know, being promoted in different countries around the world with different singles and, you know, and Ringo didn't come here to promote
No.
those albums. So anyway, so here's my top 10. Number 10 is Who Needs a Heart. I really
Ah,
think that's a really good opening cut on Bad Boy. I love the whole arrangement of it. Kind of like what you said, if he had toured and did that song, much like in the Ringo Bad Boy Star, they did Hard Times, and that came out great
that's right. I
as a
agree.
band.
Yeah.
So those two songs, you know, I could definitely, you know, hear as a live cut from Ringo. Um,
100%.
yeah. Number nine is Just a Dream.
Ah,
And, you know, you seem so surprised.
I am. I don't know why. I just thought I'm so happy to hear that. It's good.
Yeah. In fact, kind of like what you said, I wish Just a Dream was on the album. Take off out on the streets. But Just a Dream, I think, could have made a better single than definitely Wings. Um,
Maybe make out on
not
the
sure
street.
about Drowning in the Sea of Love, but
Maybe out on the street could have been the B side, non-LP B side.
all right, I'll give it B-side status, okay? But no, really, Just a Dream would be a strong candidate for an A-side, as Simple Love Song would be, and Drowning in the Sea of Love was. But it's very catchy, very melodic. I like the whole arrangement of it. Um, you know, you can just picture Ringo on the dance floor with the big disco ball on top for that particular song. Uh, not for most of the album, though.
No.
Number eight, another one that you picked, was Old Timer Lovin'. I do like the feel of that song. It's kind of, I don't know if I want to call it honky tonk, but it does have like a country feel to it. And it just, there are certain songs that, you know, is so much in Ringo's ballpark, and I can see him so at home doing a song like that live. Um, and give me that old timer lovin', you know I want it so bad. It's very I don't know, very sentimental lyrics there from Ringo. I think that was well done by the team right there.
Good
Uh,
arrangement, too. Good arrangement.
yeah. It's No Secret is number seven.
Mhm.
Another really nice ballad. Ringo can write nice ballads about love. I mean, it's a simple topic. You can all write about it. Everybody loves a love song. And like I said, it's no secret, and Gypsies in Flight back to back are a highlight for me on Ringo the Fourth. Strong melody. Um, there's also something to be said, and I don't know if we should, start by giving like Richard Perry the credit, but I love the sound of Ringo's voice when he's backed up by females. You
Mm.
know, Oh My, is a lot like that. And that carried over a lot, and certainly in some of his more recent stuff on his EPs. I just think he sounds very good with female vocalists in the background.
Yeah, I
And
never thought about that, but you're right. Actually, I'm just thinking, I'm going on my head about some of the, and I never put that together, but you're 100% right. It's a good combination.
hmm, somehow it just blends really well with his vocals. Number six, I did put Wings in there. I still think Wings has a very strong melody. I just don't see it necessarily as hit material. I
Right.
do love David Spinoza's guitar work in it, and like I said, it's very bluesy. Um, I can see people who are not so much into the pop side of Ringo enjoying Wings, this arrangement of Wings. It's a gutsy song in a way. Um, Number four, Simple Love. Oh, no, no, I'm sorry. Number five, you already got a sneak peek ahead. Number five is Crying. Crying really is a brilliant song.
Yeah,
Again, brilliant in its simplicity, works for Ringo. Country music is very suitable for his voice. And, this would have been, if this had been a single like in the 60s for Ringo,
yeah,
it's an old style country song and it works really well for him. This is far more old school country than the Look Up album was, which is more of a contemporary sounding country album.
100%.
Um, and it's sometimes the simplicity is what makes it work. The melody is simple. Um, One of those drown your heart in sorrows type of songs that Ringo is good at. And another song like that is in this list. Number four is Simple Love Song, which is incredibly simple and catchy. Really, I mean, I don't know how anyone who listens to that song two or three times can have it stuck in their head.
It's an earworm. It
You
is
know?
it's very melodic and one of the catchiest melodies I've ever heard. Actually, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
surprised when they were listening to the album, the record execs didn't go, no, Ringo, this is the first single. Because it just jumps out at you, Ken.
it's just that, that was a time when disco was still hot. So they
Yeah,
probably felt go with Drowning in the Sea of Love. And well, they went with Wings instead first in America.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. We should have been working for the record companies.
I think we should still be working for record.
Uh, I remember when Bad Boy came out and Lipstick Traces was the first single in America and it didn't do well at all. And I wrote to the record company. I said, why didn't you make Heart on My Sleeve the first single? That should have been the first single on the album. And at that time, they were releasing it as a second single, and it didn't do well. But they wrote back to me about it, which you know,
They
I'm,
say, what did they say?
they said, thank you for your interest. We just released Heart on My Sleeve. Unfortunately, it's not doing as well as we expected it to do, but thanks for your concern kind of thing. But it was nice that they wrote back. Typewritten letter, you know.
I wrote them too when Heart on My Sleeve came out because I wrote them and said I live in Canada and for some reason it's not being released here. And they typed a letter to me and mailed it to me. They sent me a promo copy and a stock copy. They, which I thought was very nice. They said, "We're sorry Canada CBS didn't release it, but here you go. Enjoy." So,
Man, I should have been living in Canada.
no, but I think maybe if they'd reversed the 45s, maybe if the first one had been Heart on My Sleeve, and then I think Heart on My Sleeve, and then Tonight, and then Lipstick Traces, I think would have been the good triple set, right?
Uh-huh. A lot of people I know really enjoy Tonight as a song now, and it's really over the years grown on me. You know,
Yeah.
it was a bit of a sleeper for me in the very beginning. Now I like it so much more. That even has a disco feel to it tonight, don't you think?
100%.
Yeah.
It's you could picture. Well, the only problem with the song is you can picture other people singing it. So it's not a distinct Ringo song, but he does a good job with it and he makes it his own. But you could picture Rod Stewart having a top 10 hit with that song back in 78, 79. But it does have a disco, or maybe even Leo Sayer. But, you
Yeah,
know,
both of them.
yeah.
Okay, number three. And actually, I'm kind of surprised you didn't have it on your list. Ooh-wee.
Yeah. It was a toss up between Just a Dream and Ooh Wee. And I kept changing it over the days. I started this list on Saturday and Ooh Wee was in there. There was that, that it was in. I love Ooh Wee. Yeah.
I mean, there's a song that could have easily have been a hit by itself, and it ended up being a B-side,
Yeah.
you know. But you and I have spoken about this when it came to Goodnight Vienna. You can't argue the fact that Only You was a number six hit. It was successful. I
Mhm.
never understood why Snookeroo didn't get the love that it deserved. That should have been a monster hit.
Even
So
in England.
yeah. And then I would have put Ooh-wee in there. And I love the song Goodnight Vienna, so I have nothing against that being the third single here in America. But Ooh-wee was just completely bypassed. And I don't understand if you love a song like Oh My My, how can you not love Ooh-wee?
I agree.
You
And
know?
I was see again, I think Ooh Wee would have been a better first single than Only You because I thought Only You, he had the hit with Your 16 and then doing another oldies, I thought, "Ooh, we would have been a great song to kickstart Goodnight Vienna." I don't necessarily, and it's following on the heels of "Oh My My." It would have
Right.
been two back-to-back cool singles. If you think in those ways, it would have been a really cool first single off the album. I don't know if it would have been the best first single, but it could have worked. What do you think?
I still think Snookeroo is the strongest choice.
Ah, no question, no question.
You know,
And
how can you've got the hottest artist on the planet on that record. How can you not? How could radio stations not play Snookeroo at the time when they were playing Whatever Gets You Through the Night? It's the same thing.
yeah,
I
that's a,
don't get
that's a
it.
mystery. That's a
Uh,
mystery.
no, I probably would have Snookeroo if you want to make Only You the second single because Your 16 was the second single on the Ringo album. It worked that way.
Right.
But We should have been somewhere in the mix. And you think Ooey is a better choice than Goodnight Vienna as a song, as a single?
No, I liked what they did with Goodnight Vienna with the when they kind of put the two together.
Right.
That worked as a single. I think the first on the album it's a bit too short for a single. I love
Mhm.
Goodnight Vienna. I think it's got and I think see as much. I mean, I don't understand why Snoop Peru, but I also don't understand why Goodnight Vienna wasn't a hit single. I mean, it made the top 40. It
Yeah.
scraped in, but strong song, great mix, and I love that track. So I don't know what was going on in 74. Well, I do know I was there, but
You know, I
70,
don't understand why. Oh, and how can we disregard the No No song? I mean, the song went to number three in
yeah,
America, but it was coupled with Snookeroo. So I'm happy for the No No song, but why did that get more airplay than Snookeroo?
right. Well, and the funny thing is that some stations wouldn't play the No No song because it was.
Yeah,
I think it would have hit number one if every station had played it. I think it would have been Ringo's first number one off Goodnight Vienna. That would have changed the course of things. But No No song is a kind of a novelty feel to it, and
right.
uh,
It is.
and and I think it's a double A side. Ringo, good No No song and Snookeroo, double A side. And if you're a radio station, you're not going to play a No No song, then flip it over. Just flip the single over. It's really good. Good song on the B side.
There's no argument there, but I lived in the New York area. I heard Snookeroo on rock stations. I didn't hear it on AM and top 40.
Right. Same here in Toronto.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%. That's what they did here in Toronto. You'd hear Snookeroo on Chum FM. Chum AM was playing No No song and Only You. They didn't play Goodnight Vienna. I never heard that on the AM dial, but that's Toronto.
See, don't ask us to explain radio. We could talk about the music, but don't ask us to explain radio because radio makes no sense.
None.
Everyone who works in radio will tell you that.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. And I could give you countless examples of that.
Okay. Well, here on this channel, there's room for that. You're allowed to vent. Number two, I have to put "Oh My" somewhere in the list. You know, it's such a great pop record. Everything about it is wonderful. The piano playing on there, the horns, the female background singers. Um, in fact, when Old Wave came out and Hopeless was on there, I thought that was "Oh My" part two. It's very much like that, very bouncy feel to it. And you know, it's a couple of listens and you're hooked to "Oh My." Very wise choice as a third single. Um, I really was kind of hoping that would pave the way for more hits from Ringo and Vinny. And my number one choice, which is not on your list,
I know. I go ahead.
is Gave It All Up.
Yeah. Again, that was either gave it all up or out on the streets. I went with out on the streets.
Okay, well, Gave It All Up is a song from Ringo the Fourth, and it's very sad, very melancholy, and it's one of those songs where if you're sitting in the bar and you're looking back at your life and you lifted up your mug of beer, you're going through your whole life's history, and even Ringo's voice sounds like it's struggling and in pain. That could be for other reasons altogether, why it sounds that way. But the melody is just so nice. The use of the harmonica in the song is nice. When it comes to really sad, melancholy songs, I don't know. I have a soft spot for them.
Me
You know,
too.
I like depressing music.
Well, we can have
But
another conversation on that later, Ken.
but if you never heard the song "Give It All Up," give it a listen because I think that it's one of the you know, i- in his entire solo career, it's one of his best. I can't see it as a hit. It's very slow. Some people it might drag a bit, but it's just one of those songs that you could see yourself singing if your girlfriend has done you wrong or something has gone wrong in your life and you're looking back at the mistakes that you made and something like that. Um, that's the kind of song that would be ideal for you, and I think it really fit for Ringo. So,
And
you
and
know,
and and I like the build up too because you say the vocals by the end of the song he's yelling and it's great. Like he
mhm.
kind of he does this thing with his voice where he kind of and then it is one of his strongest vocal performances and I think I can't think of many songs with harmonica with Ringo. I mean that's it's a nice touch, a bit of a country blues flavor in a weird way, you know. And I it would have been my top 10. It was there. I was like, ooh wee. They were like, eh. So, but if you ask me next week, that would be in my top 10. I do love the song. And again, this goes to what we were saying. Ringo the Fourth is a stronger album than people, not everybody, but some people allow. It's a very strong album. There's some very strong material on it.
Mm, yeah, I do think that it deserves reassessment. We did a show a few years ago on the Talk More Talk podcast where we really examined it, and we didn't rate it as a great album, but it certainly deserved a bit more appreciation that it's been given through the years. It's certainly not the worst solo Beatle album, although we can all argue about that. You know, I mean, I do like most of the solo Beatle music. There's a few songs here and there that I don't care for, so it's hard to say what the worst is. There's
Well,
least favorite, but not worst.
but can I just say my vote would go for Best of the Beatles. I think is the worst solo Beatles.
You know, I got
Just
duped on that album. I
what?
saw that as a kid. You're talking about the Pete Best?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I was a kid and I saw it in a record store and I saw Best of the Beatles and I said, I don't have this. I was a little kid and I went home and said, what is this?
Did you used to have it? Used to have it.
I have it.
Yeah.
I still have it. I haven't listened to it for quite a while. But Very clever to make that the title. You could do so much with the word best.
I know. Beautiful. Beautiful. But well, I was teasing. I was teasing with that. I agree with you. There's albums that I like less than I like other albums. And I'm not talking about, anything avant-garde or anything, because you can't rate those in the same. You can't kind of go, well, Life of the Lions compared to Walls and Bridges, because they're two
Right,
different intentions, different style. Like, it's silly
right.
to compare. But I think with Ringo the Fourth and Bad Boy, and even to a certain degree, Rotogravure, these albums, again, I'm not trying to flog the book, but that was the kick for me to write. Was I've been yelling about these albums for the last 40 years, and I think that they deserve a second look, and they deserve better than they got. And I think if they had been big, I don't think we'd have a very different conversation, right? Because they were flops, it's like, oh, you see, no one liked them. Well, no, some people did. I did. The reviews weren't that bad for Ringo the Fourth when it came out, so we'll see.
It's
Time will
very
tell.
similar to talking about Paul McCartney, because Paul
Yeah,
McCartney has a tendency
yes,
to, diss the albums that haven't done well. If they haven't charted well, then he thinks, well, it probably wasn't that good after all. He
right,
lets that, whatever the chart performance, that becomes his way of assessing the music. So
right.
therefore, Band on the Run has to be the best album he's ever done. And now that Ram is getting its due, now all of a sudden he's showing some respect for Ram. But, it's the same thing with Ringo because Ringo has said a few times that you could tell how the music was going downhill in the late 70s for him. And that had a lot to do with his drinking a lot and drug problems. And the way he says it, it's like he doesn't really want to talk about those albums or those songs, but he thinks that because of his physical state at the time and, the drinking and drugs, that really affected the quality of the music. And there are some people who hear Ringo say that, they go along with him. He's
Yeah.
the artist, he must know. But sometimes, artists aren't the best judge of their own music, but it's all opinion anyway.
Well, I remember watching an interview with McCartney. I think it was called the McCartney Special, and he basically writes off Back to the Egg. Just
Oh,
everyone's entitled to a Duff album, I think he said. And I'm like, pardon? Back to the Egg? Paul, it's a great album, and here's why. But it didn't do as well as he'd hoped. It was probably the least successful Wings album next to Wings Wildlife.
uh-huh.
And, so I think he goes, well, then it's got to be bad. But there's that story of David Bowie and Paul McCartney looking at a book of charts. And Bowie goes, Paul, the album made number 8. That's not a bad listing. Paul's like, oh, I guess not. It's not bad. But it was all in perspective because David's going, well, I would like an album go number 8 at the time. So
Right.
it's all
Hey,
perspective.
there are Beatles fans out there. I remember when the Abbey Road box set came out.
Mhm.
And we were all hoping, oh, it's going to chart high. It might go to number one. And it went to number three or number two. And people that I work with are disappointed.
Yeah.
It's an album from 1969. How many albums from that time period chart that high? But there are Beatle fans who, unless it goes to number one, it's a flop.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
and when you're used to having that kind of success, as Paul McCartney has, anything that's not number one or doesn't chart really well, he probably looks at as the public didn't like it. But there's a million reasons why records sell and why they don't sell.
And there's the Sentimental Journey sold 800,000 copies in America in 1970. 800,000 copies. Man, you find an artist in 2026 who sells more than 8,000 copies of a record, and you're doing well. But Ringo would see that as a flop, and it wasn't a flop. It was anything but. It maybe didn't get the airtime, but that means, and since 1970, people have bought the album. There's a lot of people out there who buy the album and love it. And maybe there's a lot that didn't. Oh, Choose Love. Choose Love did not do as well as Ringo Rama, but it's every bit as strong in my books. Like, I love Choose Love. I think it's a great album, but it didn't chart. Doesn't mean it's not a good album. It just, for whatever reason, that year didn't work.
Well,
Uh,
it's one of the main reasons why I support podcasts because we talk about these things. in the
Yes.
podcast, and it's not like we're all saying everything that the Beatles have done is great.
No.
All the solo music is great. If we want to be honest and we want to give a negative review, we do it. But the important thing is we don't ignore it,
Right.
you know.
Good. Yeah.
And in this day and age, as I've said many times, you can go online and listen to all these albums without even buying it. So invest the time because there's so much worthwhile music that all four of the Beatles as solo artists have given us that so many people just don't know.
Yeah, that was when I wrote the Dark Horse book and people would say, I never knew Gone Trouble existed. Now I love that album. Yeah, it's a great album. It didn't sell. Harrison didn't promote it, but
That's
you know what? There's some amazing songs on that album, and I'm glad you're enjoying it because I love that. I've loved it since it came out. And you're right, not everything, but I like what you said, but at least give it a chance. At least be aware of it.
uh-huh.
And because does it drive you nuts when you talk to somebody who's not maybe a diehard Beatle fan? I don't know. Paul hasn't done anything good since,
The
McCartney.
70s,
Yeah,
you
I'm like,
or,
oh my
or Tug
gosh.
of War, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, calm. That drives me nuts. Anyways, so
But I go through this all the time.
yeah.
There was someone who a few years ago he posted something on one of the Beatles Facebook pages. I forget the name, and he had the front covers of solo Beatle albums, one from each that he rated the best. So we had Plastic Ono Band, Band on the Run, All Things Must Pass, Ringo. And somebody wrote in and said, the Ringo album is the only one you need from Ringo.
Oh,
And then I wrote back and I said, why do you say that? What did you think of the work he did with Mark Hudson? What did you think of the Time Takes Time album? What about the music he did post Mark Hudson? And then the guy wrote back and he said, well, the Ringo album's the only one that I've heard. So that gives you the right to go and post an opinion when you haven't listened to anything. There are people who are very quick to judge, people who will judge an album after one or two listens, which is totally unfair because how well can you know an album that quickly?
yeah.
And and then while it's an advantage to have been a Beatle because you'll always be a name, there'll always be people who will say, well, it could never be as good as.
Yeah.
And so they have that up against them. But thankfully, they carried on and they continued. I'm so grateful Paul and Ringo are still out there making new music and they're still touring. They don't have to do a thing. I have no doubt if John was alive, he'd still be making music all the time. And
100%. 100%.
I'm not sure about George though.
Well, I
George would
think
always record music, but would he choose to release it?
I
Because
think
the reason, and I might bring this up on another show, other than the Traveling Wilburys and the tour of Japan, the last studio album George made when he was alive was Cloud Nine. And we're talking 1987. He died in 2001. Now, do you think that if his health was still fine all those years and he was still alive today, he chose not to release any studio album for 14 years up to that point. He may have said, I had enough, and that's his right. He had enough success with his solo career. He had the Traveling Wilburys. He had handmade films. He had all this kind of success post Beatles, plus the Beatles. So I wouldn't deny him, the right to say, that's it. We don't know if George would have put out another album or not.
I think George would have embraced the internet technology and been one of those artists who does it himself, like Peter Gabriel.
Huh,
But Gabriel completely bypasses record labels. He puts his own music out through his own system. And I think that's what George and Prince tried to do. I think because Prince got sick of working with record labels. I think for George it was the companies as opposed to the creating music. And I look at Danny, like Danny puts out his albums every so often independently.
right.
Some of us on vinyl, some not. But I think Harrison would have embraced the technology of the internet and used it because I can imagine in my head a Dark Horse website, like go and order George Harrison's new album. You can
Right.
stream it, you can download it, you can buy the vinyl. I think he would have done that more than any other Beatle. I mean, Ringo and Paul could do that. You look at, say, Bruce Springsteen, where you can go and buy every concert Springsteen's ever done through Bruce's website. Ringo and Paul haven't done that yet, but they could do that. But they choose to go through the, major labels. George wouldn't have. I think George would have gone completely independent and used this whole system and said, okay, you know what? I don't need Warner Brothers. I can do this myself. Maybe.
No,
That's my positive thinking,
I hope you're right.
you know.
I can believe that. Because I think with George, there are times when he felt he had enough success where his ego was satisfied and he
Oh
was
yeah,
just recording music for the sake of enjoying making music, regardless of where it charted.
that's right.
Although when Cloud 9 came out, he had to push and give interviews, probably because he must have been pressured a bit by Warner Brothers when that happened. Same thing with the Traveling Wilburys. So it mattered to him then, but I could also see him, being like he was with Gontrapo and not caring anymore and not caring about I'm not saying about the music, I mean about the sales and going out and promoting it. He didn't like the business side of the music business. He liked the making music part.
Well, even his live album. I mean, if he had come out with Live in Japan with a DVD and promoted it, he did one interview for Live in Japan, and the album sank like a stone
Hmm.
because who knew it was out. But if I kept arguing, he filmed all the shows. Can you imagine if he put out a CD and a DVD and he's on PBS and he's doing all, it would have been a monster live album. It would have been definitely a top 20, if not top 10. But he didn't. It didn't matter. It was a concert. If you want it, here it is. If you don't want it, whatever. I don't care. I mean, that was kind of where his head was at, I think, after the Wilburys and Cloud 9. I think you're right. I think he proved his point. I can still do it if I choose. If I really want to come up with a hit, watch me. And he did. And then he didn't need to prove it anymore. But who knows? Who knows?
Okay. Something for all of us to ponder. You thought that you'd had enough of this discussion about, discovering Ringo's music with Vini Poncia.
No,
Now we got something for you to be thinking about for when we bring this up on another show.
right.
It's one of the things that we really can't answer since George is not here. He is spiritually, just
Yes.
not physically.
Right.
But Aaron, I wanted to ask you one more question, then we'll go. Because I didn't
Okay.
bring this up when I had you on the last time.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who wonder about this because
Huh.
Ringo always in the 70s from the Ringo album on, well, through, well, many of his albums, wanted to have Jim Keltner there.
Yes.
He always wanted to have a double drummer. Now, I can understand live. There are times Ringo comes out front, he's got to sing lead, you got to have another drummer. Sometimes he's had three drummers in the All-Stars. Why do you think he felt the need, the Ringo album, Goodnight Vienna, to have Jim Keltner or somebody else? Or
Yeah.
Steve Gadd say, well, Steve Gadd
Exactly.
was all Arif Martin, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was Arif's decision to have that.
Now, Bad Boy was just Ringo, although Jim
Right.
Keltner gets him in a couple of bits. That's a really good question, and I always assumed that it was a couple of things. One is that Ringo admired Jim Keltner tremendously he was a fan, and he had worked with Jim on the Harry Nilsson albums prior to Ringo. And Richard Perry was involved in that. And I think that Ringo heard the sound that was coming that Richard Perry produced with Ringo and Jim Keltner playing together. And I think he liked it. I think for him, it made the sense, it made the song whole because that's where it all started was Nielsen Schmilson and then the son of Schmilson. So I think, and you got Richard Perry kind of going, well, this is what I did, Ringo, and here's why. And I think he went, okay. And there's the odd song where Jim Keltner's not on. I also think there was in the back of his head, because he's talking about it in 76 about touring. If he has the extra drummer on the record, then when he tours with the extra drummer, it's going to sound similar to what the record is. I think he wanted to tour. I don't know what stopped him.
Mm.
Maybe George's bad experience touring. Then he looked at Paul and went, I'm not doing that. I don't know. But What do you think? I mean, do you have any idea?
I honestly don't know. I don't know why you need it in the studio unless, like you said, he liked Jim Keltner's sound and what Richard Perry brought out of it. But didn't you also say in your book that Ringo told George that he would do the concert for Bangladesh if Jim Keltner was with him?
Well, that was nerves. Ringo was terrified to do a concert. I mean, he was really nervous because he hadn't performed in front of a paying audience in 66, and he was very open about being very nervous about that. And he thought, if I at least if there's another drummer that I mean, he screws up the lyrics to Don't Come Easy.
Right.
He was, I think he needed Jim Keltner there as kind of his buddy and as someone to kind of shoulder the responsibility. That was complete nerves. I mean, I think, even with Ringo and the All-Stars, sometimes he has another drummer. I mean, he always has another drummer, Bassinet, right? And did he have the last tour? I can't remember. He had to
Yeah.
have. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think he just feels comfortable with the second drummer there. I liked it when he had Zach, by the way, but that was the Bangladesh was complete nerves. Same reason he didn't do the entire last waltz. I mean, I really wish he'd come on during the last waltz and sung a song like Sunshine Life for Me or even Photograph or whatever. He just kind of comes on at the end and does the jam, which is fine. But
Right.
I remember as a kid sitting through that whole movie going, "Where's Ringo? If I had to see Van Morrison one more time, so." But I really wish he had done more. I think that's what it was. I think it's nerves, complete nerves. The
Could be in
Bangladesh.
could be insecurity.
Oh, well, there's that too. Yeah. Um, I mean, look, Ringo's had to endure years of people saying he's not a great drummer. I mean,
Hmm.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate when they attribute the quote to John Lennon, who never said it.
Right.
It drives me mental. And you get all these drummers who come out and say, no, actually, hang on. Listen to the drumming on Back Off Boogaloo. That's all Ringo. That's fantastic.
I love
It's
the sound, not just the playing of the
the
drums on
sound,
Back
right?
Off
Yeah,
Boogaloo.
I
Yeah.
agree. That was Harrison, I think, producing. Great sound. Great. I love that song.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
have
for
fun.
coming on again, Aaron and
You. You.
Vini Poncia. If you're anywhere within the sound of our voices, we'd love to have you on this channel. Thank you for all the music that you did with Ringo, and thank you, Richard Perry, for being responsible for bringing Vini Poncia on board um, for Ringo's catalog right there. Once again, Aaron's new book on Ringo. It's called Ringo Starr Solo-Career. Got to Pay Your Dues. He also wrote Dark Horse.
Oh,
Okay. So, and you were saying on the last show you might be doing a book on Klaatu, or you're thinking about that.
no, I'm three-quarters of the way through the book.
Okay.
I'm meeting with a couple of members in the weeks to come, and hopefully by the end of the year, I should have the book ready to come out. So I'm excited about that. And then who knows? I might go to Ringo in the 80s. I haven't decided. If people want
Yeah.
Ringo in the 80s, let me know.
Okay. Well, you got a home here for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really love talking with you, and it's been an absolute blast. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's just, you know, I've done so many shows on the Beatles, but I don't think I ever did a show just on Vinnie Poncia with a focus on Vinnie Poncia with Ringo. I'm glad to have you on for that. So,
Great idea. I love it. Thank you.
okay. Thanks to all of you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you have any ideas for something you'd like me to cover here on this channel, if you're familiar with the work I've done, I do all kinds of shows, trivia shows. I have sometimes a group of people all at once or one-on-one interviews, interviews with musicians, podcasters, you name it. All kinds of shows I do here. If there's something that you in particular really like and want to see more of, please let me know. You can also email me, by the way, at everylittlething@att.net. And so thanks again for watching this, and we'll be back very, very soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.